Ex-wife who cheated and abandoned our family years ago shows up at my door with another man's kid wanting to be a family again. I slammed the door in her face. Some context here. My ex-wife Angela, 36, and I, 37. Male, met in our mid-20s. I was around 24 and we were working at the same firm. That's how we met. After being in a relationship for 2 years, we got married. And within 3 years of our marriage, we had 2 daughters, now 9 and 7 years old. The second pregnancy was unexpected, and she wasn't happy about it, but she didn't terminate it, even though I had told her it would be okay with me if she did, since I didn't want to put her through anything she didn't want. After our first daughter, things were still great between us, and we were as in love as we could be. But that changed after the second pregnancy. She became really moody and irritable, and constantly picked on me, or our eldest. I figured this was because of hormones, and tried to make my peace with this new version of Angela. We thought it would change after a while, but things just kept getting worse. My daughter and I learned to walk on eggshells around her. I was taking care of everything, even though she was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom. She had quit her job of her own volition after our first child, and had handled all the housework along with caring for our eldest, until she got pregnant a second time. During that pregnancy, we had to hire a housekeeper because she said she was too tired to manage both the housework and the kids. I agreed. Even though it was slightly beyond our budget, because I didn't want to inconvenience her, especially while she was pregnant. I assumed she would go back to handling the house and kids during the day after our second daughter was born. Also, to be clear, I wasn't one of those husbands who did nothing around the house. After work, I did whatever I could to help, even though I was exhausted. After she gave birth to our younger daughter, I thought she would take a few months and then bounce back so we could return to normal. But several months passed, and there were no signs of change. She remained just as cranky and irritable, and refused to do any housework. She would sit at home all day, watching television. She didn't even play with the kids, and would sometimes pay our neighbor to take them to the park. I don't mean to sound resentful, but I did feel that way. I was working day and night, and she wouldn't even do the bare minimum at home. It was also becoming expensive to pay for a housekeeper to handle all the cooking, cleaning, and other chores. I was covering all other expenses as well, and I wanted to save for our daughter's future. But that was becoming nearly impossible because Angela refused to help in any way. After about 6 months since our younger daughter's birth, I realized we couldn't continue like this and that I needed to talk to Angela. I knew it would be a difficult conversation, so I asked my parents to watch the girls for a day, and they agreed. That day, I sat Angela down and told her I understood she was tired after 2 pregnancies, but I needed her to work with me. I explained that keeping a housekeeper was becoming too expensive and that I needed her to honor her word and start doing at least some of the household chores so we could renegotiate and reduce the housekeeper's salary and save money. She immediately refused. She said she was too busy watching the kids to do any housework and that I should start earning more instead of making excuses and blaming her for our financial situation. I told her I was already doing my best, but she needed to do her part as well if we wanted the marriage to work. I also mentioned that she wasn't really taking care of the kids, since as far as I knew, she just let them sit with her watching television for hours. The housekeeper had mentioned this to me once in passing. I quickly realized bringing that up was a mistake because she became furious and accused me of spying on her through the housekeeper. She went on a tirade, saying she wasn't going to tolerate this anymore, that she was done being pushed around by me and being forced to do all the work. I did nothing except sit at a desk for a few hours every day. She then told me this was my fault, that I couldn't afford a housekeeper, and that it was shameful I had to beg her to help, since I was supposed to be the man of the house. It was all completely illogical, and she was just grasping at straws to make it seem like there was nothing wrong with her doing nothing all day, and that I was the crazy one for expecting her to contribute and pull her weight. We ended up getting into a massive fight. She called me a loser who couldn't afford to be with a woman like her, and I retaliated by calling her a lazy cow who had already failed at being a good mother, given how scared our eldest daughter was of her, and was now failing as a wife as well. That remark really got to her, and she shoved me hard. I lost my balance and fell backward onto the coffee table, shattering the glass and injuring myself. I had to be rushed to the ER, and she kept apologizing and crying the whole time. Luckily, it was just my back that was hurt, and the injuries were only surface level, but I could have been seriously hurt. After that, I didn't trust Angela anymore. I told her she had to move out because I didn't trust her around the kids. There was no telling when she might lose her temper, and hurt them too. I asked my parents to take care of our daughters in the meantime. For a week, she kept protesting, saying she would never let something like that happen again, but I just didn't trust her. I almost filed for divorce, but she begged me to give her another chance. By the end of that week, we agreed she would go live with her parents for some time and undergo therapy. I told her I would only allow her to move back in once she had been given a clean bill of health by a medical professional. There was clearly something very wrong, because happy people don't act like that, but she was willing to work on it and get better. I also didn't want my daughters to grow up without their mother, so I agreed not to divorce her right away, and to give our marriage another chance. We also started marriage counseling while living separately. For a while, things seemed to improve. My parents had moved in with me to help take care of the girls, while Angela stayed with her parents. We attended counseling sessions weekly, and I was also in touch with her therapist, who told me she had been suffering from postpartum depression but was getting better. One of her symptoms had been anger issues, which she hadn't had before, but they had spiraled out of control when she shoved me. That was a wake-up call for both of us. This went on for nearly a year, and around the 6-month mark, I even allowed her to visit our daughters under my supervision. She was slowly becoming her old self again, and I was glad to see it. It finally felt like things were improving, and that we might be able to make it work. But then, all of a sudden, she stopped attending counseling sessions without any explanation. She also stopped responding to me, although I knew she was still making progress because her therapist continued to update me. None of it made sense. For weeks I tried to talk to her, but she kept brushing me off, saying she needed time for herself. After almost 3 months of her avoiding me, I decided to visit her at her parents' house. I hadn't done so earlier because her parents didn't like me and blamed me, believing I had driven their daughter to act that way. She had told me it was better if I didn't visit while she was living with them, since it would only create more drama, which was the last thing we needed. But I broke that rule and went anyway. She had been distant and skipping counseling sessions, and even when she did show up occasionally, she seemed completely uninterested. I couldn't make sense of it. Whenever I tried to talk to her, in person, over the phone, or through text, she would say everything was fine, but I could tell from her behavior that she was hiding something. The day I showed up at her parents' house, I expected her to be at home, but she wasn't there. When I asked her parents where she was, they told me they weren't allowed to tell me and slammed the door in my face. I could tell they were enjoying it, and I had a bad feeling about the whole situation, so I decided to call Angela while standing outside her parents' house. I tried calling her several times, but she didn't pick up, and I was getting more and more paranoid by the second. I decided to sneak around the house and try to get inside myself. I went to the backyard because I knew her parents usually kept the kitchen door open, but I didn't even need to go that far. I spotted Angela sitting on the swing in the backyard. The problem was, she had her back to me, and she was making out with a man I didn't recognize. It's been a long time since that moment, but it's permanently imprinted in my mind because it was the most horrible moment of my life, and I still haven't been able to forget it. The man she was with pulled away as soon as he saw me, and by the time Angela turned around, I had already started walking back to my car. She caught up with me and tried to stop me, but I couldn't hear anything she was saying because I was in shock. She tried to grab me, but I shook her off and told her not to touch me. She didn't, and I got into my car and drove back home. As soon as I got home, I blocked her everywhere so she wouldn't have a chance to explain. I told my parents to find a lawyer for me and informed them of what I had just witnessed at her parents' house. I didn't see or hear from Angela again until we met with the court-appointed mediator for our divorce settlement. By that point, I had pretty much turned into a robot, functioning only for the sake of my daughters. I had completely shut down emotionally. I didn't feel anything, not even when I found out that Angela was terminating her parental rights because she had decided she didn't want to be with us anymore. She wanted to be with the man I had seen her with. Let's call him Sean. He was her childhood friend. Although they had grown apart after high school, they reconnected when she moved back in with her parents, and she had apparently fallen in love with him. Her parents supported this, which explained why they had been fine with her making out with him in their backyard despite her being a married woman with 2 kids. Apparently, they had always wanted her to end up with Sean and were happy that she was finally choosing herself and her own happiness, as if she had ever done anything else. The divorce process was long, because, even though she had cheated on me, she still wanted to qualify for alimony. It took time, but my lawyer and I fought hard and made sure she didn't get anything. It was all rightfully mine, since I had been the one paying for everything for so long while she did nothing but sit at home watching television. It has been 5 years since He divorce was finalized, and we succeeded in making sure she walked away with nothing. The months I spent dealing with the divorce were some of the hardest of my life, but I knew I couldn't break because I had to take care of my daughters. They had no one else but me. My parents were incredibly supportive, and I can't thank them enough for being there while I balanced work and raising my kids. Now, 5 years later, even though the divorce once felt like the worst thing that could have happened to me, I'm grateful for it. I don't think I would be where I am today if I hadn't made the decision to leave Angela. Life has treated me well since then, and I'm in a much better place in every way. We've moved into a bigger house because I earn more now, and I only have to spend money on myself and my daughters. My parents live nearby and visit often. I have friends who care about me, and my daughters are as happy as they can be. That's all a man really needs, and I'm thankful that everything has been going well. Or at least, it was. Until Angela showed up again a few days ago. The kids were at school, and I was about to leave for work when the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Angela was standing there with a young boy beside her. He couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 years old, and I immediately knew he was her son. I was caught completely off guard seeing her at my door and was still trying to process it when she started crying and said she was there to apologize and make things right. She told me she was finally ready to be a family again and wanted to give our marriage another chance. I couldn't believe she was back after all these years, now wanting to give our marriage another chance, as if that decision was hers to make. Within a split second, I made up my mind. I decided to shut the door and turn her away because I didn't want to get involved in what this was. But before doing that, I told her this was not her family anymore. I had stopped being her husband the day she cheated on me with Sean. The divorce had only been a legal formality. She had also given up custody of our daughters, so she had no right to refer to us as her family anymore. After saying that, I shut the door and told her to go away because I didn't want her anywhere near my property. I could have cursed her out too, since I was really angry, but I held back because of the little boy. I could hear her crying outside my door for a few minutes after I shut it, but I chose to ignore it. Once I was sure she had left, I went to work. I tried hard not to think about it because that would have weakened my resolve, and I couldn't afford that. I almost managed to forget that Angela had even shown up, but as soon as I got home from work, I received a call from my parents demanding an explanation for why I had turned her away. They told me Angela had contacted them after I shut the door on her, and that she had been devastated. They then admitted they were the ones who had given her my new address and told her to visit me, since she was in the process of divorcing Sean, and finally had a chance to make things right with me. They said Angela had reached out to them about a month ago, and that this had been planned for some time. My parents believed it was time for me to think about my kids, that my daughters needed a mother, and there was no better mother than Angela. So they decided she deserved another chance, and told her where to find me, and what to say. I was furious. It wasn't their place to forgive her, or decide to give her another chance without even asking me if I was okay with it. It could have gone very badly if the kids had been home, and it was reckless of them to do something like this. I told them off, but they refused to admit they had made a mistake. They said they had helped me during the divorce by taking care of the kids, and still occasionally looked after them, so they believed they had an equal right to decide what was best for the children. According to them, whether or not I wanted to reconcile with Angela was my decision, but I couldn't take away their right to decide what was best for my daughters. I thought that was ridiculous. At the end of the day, they were my daughters, not theirs. While I respected my parents and would always be grateful for what they had done during my divorce, it wasn't their place to bring Angela back into my life. We argued, but they insisted I was the one out of line and accused me of being selfish for not giving Angela another chance. They claimed they had done their due diligence and were convinced she was a different woman now who deserved to be part of my daughters' lives. Even when I reminded them that she had signed away her rights, they said it was insulting that I believed they would put me or my daughters in harm's way. They accused me of ruining my daughters' lives by being too arrogant to accept that they needed their mother. It's been a few days now, and I still don't think I was out of line or selfish. I've thought about it a lot. Update 1. About a week has passed since Angela showed up at my door with her son, and I recently found out the truth about her relationship with my parents. It's honestly so disturbing that I don't even know where to begin, and I'm still trying to process it. It's mind-boggling how all of them have betrayed me without hesitation. Apparently, not only were my parents the ones who gave her my new address, but they had been in contact with her all along. I had completely cut her out of my life after the divorce, but they hadn't, because they believed she would eventually come around. They didn't talk often, maybe once a month, but even that felt like a betrayal to me. Sean had made Angela sign away her rights after she was served with the divorce papers and gave her an ultimatum. Either abandon her family and start a new life with him, or stay in touch with her kids and fight for custody, which would mean leaving him. According to my parents, it had been a difficult decision for her, but she ultimately chose Sean and starting a new family with him instead of staying with the one she already had. My parents said Angela had contacted them shortly after I filed for divorce, and she contacted my parents to tell them about her situation and asked for their help because she still wanted to stay in contact with her kids privately. She told them she had been backed into a corner by both of us. Either way, she wouldn't be able to see her kids. I had been fighting for full custody with only supervised visitation, while Sean had instructed her to abandon her kids altogether. Even if she had fought for custody and gone against Sean, her chances of getting even partial custody were slim, given the circumstances of our divorce and her history of struggling with her temper. So fighting for custody would have been a waste of time and resources. There was a real possibility she could lose both Sean and custody of our daughters if she chose to fight, and that was before my parents got involved. She met with them privately and practically begged them to help her stay in touch with her daughters by acting as a bridge between them. She knew that once she signed away her rights, she wouldn't have any visitation rights at all. Not even supervised ones, but my parents would, and they planned to exploit that. They succeeded in deceiving me for years by going behind my back and allowing Angela to meet our daughters. They did it because her situation struck a chord with them, and they felt they couldn't, conscience, keep a mother away from her children. Betraying their own son for years, however, didn't seem to bother their conscience at all. They told me that whenever I dropped the kids off at their house, they would invite Angela over and let her spend time with them. My daughters never told me they were seeing their mother because my parents bribed them with toys and candy to keep quiet. Whenever I asked them what they did at their grandparents' house, they would say they played games with my parents and their friend. I always assumed they meant my parents' actual friends, whom I already knew, but apparently that's what my parents had told them to call their mother in case I asked. I couldn't believe my daughters had been lying to me as well, but I forgave them because they're just kids, and because Angela and my parents had clearly manipulated and intimidated them into staying silent. After I learned the truth from my parents, I asked my daughters directly if they had been meeting their mother behind my back. They started crying and said they couldn't tell me because they would be punished by God if they did. Angela and my parents must have drilled it into their heads that there would be serious consequences if they told the truth, which explains why they had been so secretive and vague all along. I also felt like a terrible father for never asking which friends of my parents they were spending time with. It could just as easily have been someone else, someone dangerous, and I never would have known. But I'm putting an end to it now. I'm getting a restraining order against all of them. I already have written proof, since my parents sent me an email a few days after our argument, explaining everything. They thought the email would make me understand how desperate Angela was to remain a mother to her daughters, without losing the supposed love of her life, and that it would somehow make me forgive everyone involved. Instead, it only made me realize that everyone involved was dishonest, and that I couldn't trust any of them anymore. It's also ironic that Angela signed away her parental rights, and then had to resort to secretly meeting our kids, like it was some kind of crime. All because Sean didn't want her to have any contact with her previous family. He was supposed to be her true love, yet now they were getting divorced, and it had all been for nothing. They even had a son together, but according to my parents, Sean wanted nothing to do with either her or the child anymore. He had received a job offer and was planning to move away in a couple of months. Angela had recently started working again, and their son had just begun kindergarten, so she didn't want to move with him. That's why they had been fighting for a long time. Everything finally came to a head 3 months ago when Sean told her he was done, that he was taking the job and moving out. He said he wasn't interested in being a family man anymore, because it would mean sacrificing his own future and happiness just to make her happy, and he wasn't willing to do that. This was all supposed to make me feel sorry for Angela, but instead, it only made me feel like justice had finally been served. I have already spoken to my lawyer, and the petition for the restraining orders has been filed. My daughters and I have also had a proper discussion about all of this, and I told them that moving forward, they will not be seeing their grandparents or their mother again. They seem to be okay with it for now, but we are still going to attend therapy and try to work through everything, because I'm sure this is going to be difficult for them, and probably has been for the past 5 years. But this ends now. Update 2. Hey guys, thank you so much for all the concern and support. I'm really grateful that so many people have been sending kind messages and blessings to my daughters. My parents and Angela have been served with restraining orders and are supposed to appear in court in a few days. I don't know how they feel about any of this, because I've blocked them on every possible platform, and I've also told my friends not to speak to them in case they try to reach out. I've also increased the security around my house and have been working from home for the past couple of days. I spoke to my daughter's school authorities and informed them about the situation. Initially, I didn't want to send them to school for a few days, but I didn't want their education to suffer because of Angela and my parents. So now the teachers are instructed to keep an eye on them and not allow anyone other than me to pick them up after school. I'm doing everything in my power to make sure they can't get to us, because I'm sure they will try. So far, things have been fine, and I'm hoping that once the restraining order is finalized, they will continue to stay away. Update 3. Hi, this will be a short update. We got the restraining order, and for the next 5 years, all 3 of them have to stay away from me and my daughters, unless they want to face serious consequences. I'm still keeping all the security measures in place for now because the last time I saw them they looked really angry and I don't want to take any risks. My daughters and I are attending regular family counseling sessions, and I believe we're going to make a lot of progress in the coming months. We've already made considerable progress. Honestly, all I want now is for my daughters to be happy. That's it. So please keep sending us your best wishes. We need it.